Grace and peace. Thank you guys again for tuning in to another episode of You're Doing It Wrong. My name is Brandon. Last month had the honor and the privilege of recording an episode with Paula and Trinetta on motherhood. I thought they did a phenomenal job. Again, when I go into these episodes, I don't know what to expect. I want to have just real and authentic conversations, and they definitely brought that. We talked about identity and just the double standards when it comes to mothers and fathers. We talked about infertility, and we talked about abortion. So I thought it was a great episode of me branding this podcast as one that is willing to have those conversations, and not only just have those conversations, but acknowledging where I've been wrong, and not in acknowledging certain things, and just us as a collective of Christians and those who share the same worldview have just gotten it wrong, especially when it comes to the topic of abortion. Grace is rarely, leading in that conversation, and much grace is needed when we're having such a difficult topic on such things as abortion. But this month, I am once again joined by just some wonderful, talented ladies. I wouldn't be doing this podcast if I didn't have support, and I can honestly say that they have just shown so much love and support to me, and I just wanted just to reciprocate that, and not only just reciprocate it, but they are talented as well, and this is a topic that is very, very dear to me. Some of you know that I'm a biblical studies major, got my bachelor's in biblical studies, got a master's, working towards another master, and hopefully get a doctorate. And it sounds like a mouthful. It sounds like a whole bunch, but I have no clue what I'm going to do. I don't want to be a pastor. I do like to teach, but as I've been in seminary, I realized that teaching in a seminary is cool, but I want to be able to communicate to people in my cultural context, if you understand what I'm trying to say. So I don't mind teaching, but I want to do other things as well, such as podcasting, such as writing. I don't mind preaching and speaking, but I don't know how that looks. I don't know what that is. And as I grow and I mature, I realize that I can't do it all by myself, that I need help, and I need support. And that's why I'm so grateful for these women that I have here with me, just going through that journey, just the struggles, just the uncertainty, not knowing what's gonna happen, and just being able just to have a platform just to discuss and talk about that and just be real, because like I said, I honestly don't know what in the world I'm doing. But I'm just grateful for them. And like I said, the topic of conversation is creating content. And I hate using words like that because it's such a millennial term and it's so abstract, especially when I talk to my parents about it. They look at me like I'm crazy. Mm-hmm. They're like, I don't know what you're talking about. Right. Like, how much money you make? And it's like, exactly. I don't know. So hopefully this is, just the beginnings of creating a platform, creating content, and just putting myself out there, because normally I just would rather be behind the camera and not in front of it. And that's one of the things that God has just been pressing on me, that no, this is where I've called you to have you, and just being willing to be uncomfortable. I think for a long time, comfort has been an idolatry. I've idolized it. Mm-hmm. And God is saying, no, we're not doing that. So I'm grateful for the help and the support that I get. But I've got Tam and Bonita with me. I guess I should have said that. How are you guys doing this morning? Number one, thank you for giving up your Saturday to being here. But how are you guys doing today?
I'm good. Thank you for having us.
Yeah. Absolutely. Like I said, you guys have always been just a constant support. And when I reached out to you guys, I was throwing out the idea of talking about business and branding, and just still trying to brainstorm of which direction that we should go. And I think just creating content is probably the better, because now we can talk about these other ideas that come along with branding and business. And even though I was making the joke earlier about just trying to brand this podcast, it's one that's willing to have those deep conversations that usually get ignored, and do it from a perspective that acknowledging, being aware of where I've dropped the ball, and then us as Christians have dropped the ball. But this idea of branding, I really don't like it, because it's almost like, you're selling yourself. It's like when you go into an interview, it's like you got to put your best face forward and everything. And it's kind of the idea with branding. And not to say that that's a bad thing. It's just, I've just never been much of a salesperson. I don't think I'm good at it. And I think there's two sides to branding. There's a tangible side where you can see something physical. And then there's an intangible side where it's like, who are you? What do you represent? And I was saying earlier that a good example of this is the NFL. Recently, we just heard, Jay-Z is partnering with the NFL, and people are so up in arms where, if I'm going to be honest, I love the product of the NFL. I love watching it on Sundays, but I understand that there's so many people who are not with the intangible side of the NFL because they don't seem to care about the players' concerns. Most people believe Colin Kaepernick is still, being blackballed. So it's like, how can I support, this business that is doing these things, even though it's $1 billion business, but the intangible branding, it doesn't look good, especially when you compare it to the NBA, where it seems more player oriented and things like that. And that's one of the things that I appreciate about you guys, not necessarily the content that you were creating, which is great, but who you were as people. And so I wanted to start from there. So I wanted to ask the question, who are you? What do you value? And how is that shown in the content that you create? And I'll start with you, Tam.
Okay, well, I am a wife of 9 years.
Congrats.
Yeah, so shout out to my husband, Pat. And so, yeah, wife. By day, I am a human resources specialist. I work for a medical practice. I've been there for 9 years as well, going on 10. And I'm also a sister, a daughter, a friend, and I am also a content creator, I guess you could say. I have a blog. It's coming up on a year in September. This is Tam is the name of my website. This is tam.com, and then my blog is called Tam Speaks. So I've been blogging for about a year, and I'm also I love to sing, so I'm on our praise and worship team at our church. And I feel like I'm forgetting. Oh, I'm a photographer.
Yes.
Gosh, I forget about that piece. Yes, I do photography. I've been doing photography since 2011. So that's been a little while now. Did I forget anything else?
So a lot of the things that you named were things that you do. How would you describe you just as a person, your just personality, your character traits, and then how you display that?
Okay.
Well, that was fine. You
Okay.
could go take it any way you want. Any way
so.
you want to go with it.
Okay. So who am I as a, who am I
as a person? But that's fine because
Got
we are identified by what we do.
Yeah.
But who is Tam as the person?
Right. Okay. Tam as a person, I am a introvert by heart. So that means I love people. However, I need my space at the same time. So I'm an introvert by heart, and I love God. He has truly saved my life. I really have a testimony when it comes to that. So I am a believer. I'm so thankful for Jesus. And I don't start, Benita. I saw that little head. And yeah, so I don't know. Outside of that, I feel like I am I'm really starting to walk into my gift of encouragement. So I feel like I'm an encourager by heart, if that's even a word. So I like to just be there for people. So I think that falls a lot into my personality as well. But it kind of contradicts the whole introvert side, but I'm working on that too. So yeah, does that answer that question?
It does. Do you think the blog helps with that, where you can kind of be private but still, communicate with? Yeah.
A little bit, yeah, but then it gets difficult because people will come up to me, like they'll see me in person and be like, "Oh my God, I loved your blog," and I'm like, "Okay, what do I say to that? How do I react to that?" You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So then I kind of have to engage more about it and maybe go in a little bit more depth, or if they just have a question or something like that. But I think it's all a part of my growth process right now, which I've been in a season for about 1.5 years. Of just growth as a person, as me, and just really finding who I am. And I think we're going to talk about it a little bit later. But just being married to the person I'm married to. I've been such a support for him, which I love. But now I just feel like I'm in a time of figuring out what place I hold in this world.
So one of the things that just knowing you, and like I said, for those who don't know, when we first moved here, Tam and her husband, they were our community group leaders. So we have a special relationship with the mixes, just how they've embraced us moving down, because it's a big move and you just like uncertain of so many things, but they've embraced us. But just knowing you and just being able to view from afar, I've always had this sense of boldness and confidence that I've seen. And it's funny that you make that face about me. But it's like, no, because even at church, leading worship, just so confident, just being, I don't know, you've always just seemed so bold and confident. And I think your reaction is kind of shown in your writing, you know, where you're just able to be vulnerable. And that's something that, and clearly, I guess when you don't know people, you're not going to let them that much in. But just the person that I saw as Tam, just so bold, so strong, so confident, just the writing was just so vulnerable. And I just connected with that because it just shows you just the full range of a human being. That even though I can, not to say that it was, you know, an act, but it's like, hey, there's times where, and I guess that's the point, you're not relying on your own strength. Right. You know, you understand that your strength comes from something else. But that's just something that, as an observer of you, I sense just that boldness and that confidence from you. But in reading your writing, just seeing, you know, how vulnerable it is just to be so open and honest in your writing. So that's something that I've noticed in your writing and truly appreciated.
Well, I think that just goes to show like how our perception of ourselves is so can be so skewed and so different than other people's perceptions of us. Because that was my perception of Tam too when I first met her, and likewise she and Pat were my community group leaders, and they were just always very welcoming, very like, what do you need? We got you. And you get that smile. And you see Tam every Sunday up leading worship, and as a person who leads worship with her, sometimes I'm looking at her like, how does she do that? You know, and and it's crazy, like just the feeling that you have that maybe doesn't reflect the same, you know, perception that we have.
Y'all talking about confidence and being bold. Child,
but I think just that the fact that you are scared and then you can still go out there and do it, the fact that you don't want to be vulnerable and you can still write to it, that really just kind of show, you know, highlights what we're saying even more. So I definitely agree 100%.
I appreciate y'all saying that. Ooh.
Yeah, and it's like we've all had our times up on the stage, and like I said, I can honestly say I know the feeling of just being like terrified, standing in front of all the people. But it's just like it's definitely a peace that surpasses you know, all absolutely. That you have to, like, you know, truly rely that this is in my weakness, God's grace is shown. And so you clearly see that. But what about you, Benita? Who are you? What do you value? And how is that shown in the content that you create?
I am a believer, first and foremost. I am a sister. I'm a daughter. I'm a bestie to a bunch of people. But, you know, I think that's really where all my value is in my relationships. You know, I love the people that are in my life because they love me so good. And that's I understand that that's not necessarily common in a lot of people's lives. So I'm very, very grateful for that. I am a natural extrovert. But the older I get, I appreciate my alone time. The older I get, the more I appreciate being by myself. I think that a lot of people kind of misinterpret my extroversion though, like, or extrovertedness. What is it? Y'all know what I'm saying. Because I think, especially to introverts, like being an extrovert means you like to be the center of attention, you like the camera on you all the time, and like I'm actually the exact opposite, which again goes in contradiction to like what I do with like branding myself on social media. But the honest reality is, if I didn't have my brand, if I wasn't working towards what I believe God has called me to do, I probably wouldn't have a social media page. So I am like, I love being with people. I love to talk. I love to laugh. I love to joke. I think I'm silly.
That wasn't shady. I promise. It wasn't.
She got that in real slick. but yeah, I think I'm silly. But I think that, there's still this part of me as I continue to, get older and get more confident in who I am and like what I want, what God's called me to do, that I have to have my quiet time to really reflect on what and hear what God's saying, not what everybody else is saying. I guess what I do, I am, by day, I am an operations manager at a bank. By every other hour, I am a content creator. I am a blogger. I have apparel. I'm starting coaching, life coaching. And I am I'm figuring it out every single day, like a work in progress. Yeah. So.
And being very modest that you're actually wearing your apparel.
Yeah.
Which you can plug.
Well, this is about branding.
And also a book too. Again, modest.
Oh, author.
Author. As well. And it's kind of the same deal with you, just from the outside perspective, just not knowing all the things that you've gone through, and to be so personal in the book in the content that you create, because not only have you written one book, you've also written a children's book as well. And I haven't can you speak about that, how that whole came together?
Yeah, so actually what's funny is I've never actually wanted to write like an adult book. So I know that was God all day, saying that, this is information that I need you to put out. This is content I need you to put out. But I always wanted to do like a children's animated series. I did not know what I wanted to write about until one day there's a little girl that was in our live, and she was talking to my mom, and she asked my mom for a Bible. Yeah. And my mom was like, well, of course I'll get you a Bible. Where'd that come from? 'Cause she was like 5. And she said that my dad, who she called Papa D, he would read her Bible stories when he took her to school. And it was just so sweet to me how excited she was about the Bible and, knowing about God. And then I thought to myself, like, what about all the kids that don't have like a Papa D to tell them about God? So then I knew that I wanted my content to be, Christian based. I wanted it to be something that, for little Black and brown children to be able to see themselves in Christian literature. So the first book is called Do You Know Who God Is? And it's really about this little girl talking to her grandfather, asking him, Grandpa, who's God? And he's telling her who God is, in a way that I think that children can, digest. But that's going to be a part of a larger series, which is called The Divine Adventures. Okay. So, yeah.
And so just going based off that, it seems like, at least from those two things that you've written, it's kind of based off just your own personal experiences. And so you go from writing it, and I just love the range, going from writing a children's book to a memoir, it's just like a big gap. So talk to me about just that whole process of writing that, because again, you don't spare any details. You tell it, and I love how you even open up your book and it's like, don't be judgy, because it's like, hey, I make some mistakes in this book and you're gonna probably scream at me and they're like, yo, what are you doing? And just that vulnerability and the transparency, like, hey, I know this picture that we have of what a Christian looks like, and all the things we not supposed to do and are supposed to do, is like, just throw them all out the window,
right.
Because this is my life and this is my journey and this is where God has brought me, and I've learned so much through it. And so I guess just speak to just being so willing to be open about all those things and just the process of writing, because I've also written myself, and I understand the difficulty of writing a book, but my book isn't nearly as personal as yours, because it's like I'm just putting this out into the world. So
right.
Talk to me about that.
So the book is really a byproduct of my blog. So my blog, sheisbenita.com, is really me talking through some situations in my life where, One, when I was 22, I was in a car accident with my boyfriend, and he passed away in the car accident. And like me dealing with that, or rather me not dealing with that. And then I got into a relationship that was really toxic for me, and just like the ups and downs in that relationship. And I did the blog because when I was in the relationship with the guy, I painted such a beautiful picture of his and my relationship. Mm-hmm. Like online, you would have thought we were the best couple. We were like Barack and Michelle, couldn't nothing bring us down. And the whole time I was putting on, because the whole time I was not happy. That's not the life that I was living. So you know, once I got done with that, and when I called off the wedding, because we ended up getting engaged, when I called off the wedding, I was like, well, what do I do now? Like, people are going to be asking me about my wedding. They're going to want to know when, you know, what's the date. Right. They've been so invested in this relationship that I created for them, right? And so it's like, well, Lord, how do I keep moving on? And I was talking to my friends one day, and they were like, well, Benita, you should write it out, because I've always been a writer, even since I was a kid. And I was like, I don't know about, you know, putting my business out there like that for people to like look at me and judge me and stuff like that. And it just kept really, you know, I just kept hearing that, just write it out. And so I did, and I made it a Facebook post one day, and the response was like overwhelming. And I was like, okay, God, if this is what you want me to do, I'm gonna do it. And I knew that it would not be what he was calling me to have it be if I wasn't completely open, if I wasn't completely honest, because I couldn't tell the story and still look good in it, because nobody gets anything out of that. Right. So I couldn't paint myself as a victim. I couldn't, you know, I couldn't make the dirty parts look cleaner than they were, because God can't move through that, or he won't move through that. So I knew that if I was going to commit to do this, that I had to be all in, and I had to give it straight. And that was very difficult. And I prayed before every single post went out, and I wrestled with God. I was like, this one, you want like this information out? Because I could talk about some other stuff. And, you know, and of course, every single time I put it out, it will blow my mind, because I just knew that people were going to be like, girl, you stupid. Like, how'd you deal with that? And we thought you was smarter than this. Like, and then, you know, I just get women that are just like, oh my God, you know, I thought I was dealing with this by myself. I get men who are like, you know, reading that helped me realize that I haven't been the person that I need to be to the girl that I'm with. And just like, then I'm like, that's confirmation, that's God. And then people started saying, we need a book. And I was like, y'all don't. Y'all got these blog entries, and that's quite enough. And again, that's how that came to be.
And that's the thing that I really loved about the book, is just that you put it out there. Because especially us as Christians, we try to put on this facade that everything is okay. And I think, you know, social media kind of feeds into that, whether you're a Christian or not. We just want to show like the highlights and everything of what's going on. And it's like, that's not always the real of what's happening. So you were just so transparent. And that's kind of what I'm trying to do with this platform, because I listen to so many, you know, other podcasts, may not be Christian podcasts, and just their perception of Christians is just like so warped. But it's like, we have no one to blame but ourselves, you know. And a lot of times we just put on this facade that, like, as soon as I become a Christian, like, you know, I'm living the sinless, perfect life, you know, that I'm still not in the mud, and you know, things are going on. There's a new relationship that I have with sin I'm convicted over. It doesn't mean that I'm not still there.
I don't deal with it, right? I don't
deal with it, and the realities of where we just want everything to be this black and white, and it's like, no, there's some gray, and then we've got to actually work with people and get our hands dirty. That's something that we really don't want to, you know, deal with. That people are difficult, you know, people are frustrating, and I'm the most difficult and frustrating one, where we're so busy looking outwardly, and it's like, you know, let's take some time to look inwardly. And like I said, I respected that you said that you didn't necessarily paint yourself as this victim. You know, that you understood the part that you played and everything. And I think that's just so real. And that's the things that I loved about the content that you guys created, that it was so personal. And then this element of being self-aware. But with you, Benita, just everything from, like you said, the merch that you do, the books, the online courses, it's centered around She Is Benita. And it's like, you could have named it anything else, but it's like, it's just you. I'm telling you about me. And usually when people create a content, they want to have a little bit of a buffer, between the content they create and themselves, because I can understand how personal it would get if, like, someone doesn't really care, because it's almost like a rejection of you. How cognizant were you when you were creating She Is Benita that would be the head and that all these other things would fall under?
I think that was an evolution. Because honestly, initially, when I had She Is Benita going on with the blog, and then I released the children's book first, I wanted to keep them very separate. And I didn't want, like,
there to be a confusion. Also, there is something that you have created that is kind of distinct from She Is Benita.
That's not She Is Benita. Okay. But it was almost like I didn't want this baby, this animated series about God to touch Benita, because I didn't want the whatever was tainted on the Benita side to taint that. Yeah. So initially I had it, and I had like 2 different profiles on Instagram, and I marketed them very separately. And there wasn't much about the Divine Adventures on my personal page. And then I realized, first, it's very hard to manage 2 different social media accounts, so I got tired. But then I also realized that, why are you trying to separate? God's already shown you that He wants you to tell this story. Right. He's already shown what He can do through the story, and it's not about you to begin with at the end of the day. So why are you trying to separate it from this other creation that God gave you as well? So I threw that out the window, and really it's all together. I mean, at the end of the day, Christianity and Jesus is all about redemption. It's all about grace. And I no longer worried that the She Is Unbroken or the She Is Benita would taint the Divine Adventures or the you know who God is, because at the end of the day, I am still trying to say the same message. Just one is for kids, one's for a kid audience, and one's for an adult audience. So initially I did try to do that, but then when I realized that it all is me, it all is the vision God's given me, it's all the message that I feel like I've been called to give, then I'm just like, She Is Benita. And then the branding became very intentional, that when you see especially She Is start anything, that's going to be Benita.
And do you see your future endeavors always being under that, or do you think of possibly creating something different that's not She Is Benita, or everything that you create going forward is going to fall under that umbrella?
In my mind, everything will be She Is Benita, and then fall underneath it.
Okay. And the thing, Tam, definitely what you've created is extremely personal as well. But one of the things that I noticed about you and both of you guys, just the self-aware. And I think it's almost like common sense ain't so common, and I don't think people are that self-aware. Just realize how, they come off to other people, or just whatever it is, that they can't be honest with themselves. And that's one of the things that I seen in your writing. And you had this quote, and I believe it was under the blog title 30 Reasons Why Tam Speaks, and you had said, I'm jacked up. I think there's a lot of growth to be accomplished with this concept of being okay with imperfection. And I think a lot of times we cognitively say, hey, I'm not perfect, but practically we don't act that way. Right. And just seeing that, because again, it resonates with me so much, because that's what I'm trying to foster here, that I'm not perfect. I want to keep it real, like having the first episode with me and Mylene, and just talking about our own struggles, where it's just like, we've been married 7 years, and it's like, it is clearly an accomplishment, but it's like, it's work. Yes. And I'm sure you can attest to that as well, where it's like, we have this idea of what marriage is, and it's like, I've wanted nothing more to be a husband and a father, and now that I'm a husband and a father, I realize how terrible I am at it, and just having these honest conversations with ourselves, and just realizing that other people are struggling as well. And so oftentimes we just want to not want to admit that, hey, we don't have it all together. And that was something that stuck out to me. And it's not the fact that I just simply want to acknowledge my flaws in some, sort of self-deprecating way, but acknowledging them for the point of growth. And that was what you had spoke to. So during this whole process and acknowledging these things about yourself, how have you grown?
Well, I feel like I am still the old, like my grandmother would say, yet growing, still growing. I honestly forgot about that quote, to be honest. That was from, that was actually a part of that blog you were talking about. So a year ago around this time, I sat with my marketing person who was helping me develop my ideas for my blog, and she came up, shout out to Princess, she came up with this idea of me doing, because I was walking into getting prepared for my 30th birthday. So she came up with this idea of, okay, for your promotion, we can do these 30 reasons why Tam speaks to promote the blog and get prepared for launching. So that's where that blog kind of came from. So it was promotional to begin with, and then once the blog was launched, I just made it into a full blog post. But with that direct quote, I just feel like, sometimes we can get so bogged down by what we see, and this is a major part of my content creation and kind of the vibe that I just want to present with my content, of how social media can be so inundated with everybody's perfection, when in fact we're all jacked up behind what we post and behind what people actually see once we make it pretty. So I just wanted it to be made clear and plain, I'm not perfect. Like, what you may see may look good, and it might, I might pretty it up to where it looks nice and presentable, but at the end of the day, I'm struggling. It might not be with what you're struggling with, but it's something. So with that caused me to really and I'm thinking of another friend, she uses this term, you've had her on your podcast, Sharnetta, peel back the layers. She says that all the time. Kind of just peel back those layers of, okay, why do I want people to know that I'm not perfect? Is it for more attention, or is it legit so people can understand, like, hey, it's okay not to always be made up? So I went through that, and just wanting to be authentic within myself, so I had to just really kind of come down, because I'll be honest, one of my struggles is pride. So I don't want people to see the imperfections that I have. I don't want people to know that I'm jacked up. I want to have the face of, everything's good, everything's lovely. So just bulldozing that wall down, and really giving that over to Jesus above everything else, and being okay with the call that he's given me to just be a face of encouragement, and hey, it's okay that you're struggling for other people. So that was kind of just a process, and I'm still working through that, because Benita mentioned it earlier, like when God was calling her to release some of her content and personal information. It's like, you really want me to say this? Like, no, I don't want people to know that I struggle with my faith. Right. Can I just say, you gonna be okay, it's gonna be all right, God is with you, without them knowing that last night I just cried over this thing, or I just did something that I've been struggling with for years. You know what I mean? So it's a continual growth for me, and I don't know if I will, honestly, I don't know if I will ever get to a place of, okay, I'm here. You know what I mean? So yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, you said a lot of good things. Like you said, we think we're gonna reach this state of perfection, or this state of I've arrived. And it's never gonna happen. That life is this continual journey that we're on. But you had mentioned this as well, that the post was, what was it called? 30 Reasons Why Tam Speaks, but it was around when you were turning 30. And I don't want to speak for anybody else's age, but I'm 30 as well. And just wrestling with this idea of, I thought I would be further along.
Listen, Listen, Benita can tell you, I struggled so bad those like couple of months coming up to my 30th birthday, because I did not want to turn 30. Like, I did not want to turn 30 and not have accomplished some of the things that I had in mind of having fulfilled in life. And it's like, okay, I don't have this, I don't have that. Am I even in a good spot? Like, am I okay as a person, as a being? And I just had to give it over to God. Like, literally, there was one day on my way to work, it was a week before my birthday to the day, and I just started thinking about, okay, I don't have the house. We don't have the house yet. We don't have the kids yet. The bank account is looking okay, but it's not exactly where I want it to be. And it was just all the things, just, I've been at the same job for this long of a time. Maybe I should be further along in my career, or maybe I should be doing this. Maybe I should be doing that. Maybe I should be doing this. And I literally, like, started shaking on my way to work, and the tears just started coming out of nowhere. And I'm like, I don't think I can, like, what am I doing, kind of thing. And I had a conversation with my husband. My husband is amazing, y'all. And he really just was able to, he brings me back to Jesus every time. And that's one thing that I will never take away from that man. And he was able to encourage me in scripture and all that kind of stuff. And I really just had to lay that burden down of not being where I feel like I should be. And give that over to God and say, okay, Lord, show me what you want me to learn right here, right now, and then help me to progress even as I go into 30 feeling less than. And he helped me. Yeah. He really did. And my friends were there. I call them my squad members. Benita's a part of my squad. Your wife's a part of my squad. And they were there. Benita helped my husband coordinate a surprise birthday party for me that I didn't know anything about, which I was a mess throughout the whole party because I just felt, you know what I mean? Yeah. You know how God just does things just how you need them when you need them. And that night, it wasn't a whole big fanfare. It wasn't 50 people, but it was the people that I needed at that time. And it was so intimate and it was so lovely. The love was just in the room, and it just really made my heart glad. And that was just the encouragement that I needed to kind of push forward into, this past year, 11 months, with this whole content creation thing. And just, I've been growing ever since. Yeah. So.
And one of the themes that I've noticed in your writing is this theme of contentment. And again, being 30, and it's also, and I'll speak for me personally, where it's like we're wanting to be further along. Yep. And I speak for me specifically, not being grateful for what's already happened. Because me and Baba was just talking about earlier, just being some of the first in the family to either go to college, to be married, to get a master's, all these things that I've accomplished, written a book, but in my mind I'm still like, I ain't done nothing yet. Right. And it's like, God's like, you have done something. And it's so easy to be critical of yourself and defining success by these, numerical things. And that's another thing that I wanted to discuss with you guys. You monetize the content that you create, and I think hopefully in the future you plan to do so. So when you guys are creating content, how do you define success? And I'll start with you, Benita.
Well, I don't know that I am. Okay, let me be real. So I like when my posts get lots of shares and lots of likes, and when they don't, I feel some type of way. And there have been times when I've taken posts down and reposted them during peak hours. Yep. That's like me being real. But I don't know that I define success that way. I think every time I've felt the most fulfilled after something I've done is when people come to me personally and tell me their story, or feel like they're not by themselves. Feel like, okay, I can keep doing this. I got this. And I just, even listening to what Tam was saying about approaching 30 and not feeling like she'd made it, and you have to understand she was on the brink of launching her blog at the time too. So I can just assume, I'm gonna speak for you really quick, that she probably didn't feel like she was the person that give nobody advice either. So that's one of the hard things about having a platform that's based on like transparency and authenticity. It's like, I don't ever feel worthy enough to do this either. Like, why would anybody listen to me?
Right.
And then, you have your own battles of what you're thinking about and where you feel like you've fallen short. But when somebody reaches out to me and they're just like, I just want you to know that helped me. Those are the moments when I feel the most successful. I don't make enough money to base my success off a profit, even though I have started, looking at ways more strategically to make this work for me, just because I spend a lot of hours doing this stuff. But right now, it's really knowing, I feel like those are love notes from God saying, yes, this is what I called you to do. Right. This is why I said to do it. And even if that one person that said something to you is the only person who got something from it, you did what I told you to do. So.
What about you, Tam?
I mean, she kind of took the words out of my mouth. That's my same story too. I didn't mention this earlier, but a part of who I am, I'm just realizing on the Enneagram scale, I'm a number 2, type 2. And we are helpers. So that's like a thing that I've always kind of, okay, like she said earlier, tell me what you need. Let me help you. So when God kind of said, okay, this is what I want you to do, I was like, okay, I really don't want to do it this way, but if it's gonna help somebody, I'll do it.
You said it just like that too.
Lord. Okay. So yeah, like when it comes to the whole part of not wanting to like really put it all out there, but then for somebody, I mean, I've had strangers hit my DM and Instagram and be like, my friend sent me your post and I'm dealing with the exact same thing right now, and I really, really appreciate you just putting that out there to let me know that I'm not by myself, because sometimes when you're going through things, maybe you might be just too embarrassed to say, okay, this is what I'm dealing with. But then if you're a person like me, I'm the strong friend. I'm one of the strong friends in my squad. So I hear a lot of what everybody else is dealing with. So sometimes you don't want to project that on what you're dealing with on other people. So when strangers hit me up and be like, what, I really couldn't say this to my friends or anything like that, but I really appreciate you putting it out there because it lets me know I'm not by myself. And then I'm able to give them some more encouragement in that very moment. That's where I feel like God is getting all the glory, maybe not all of it, but the glory in that aspect, because we, in the end of the day, we can't give him everything that he deserves. But in that aspect, he's like, okay, yes, this is what I've called you to do, and this is why. So that's where I feel where I get my money. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, yeah.
And I feel the same way. So something about me is I'm like you, Tam. I'm an introvert. I can't stand being in front of the camera. Don't like how my voice sounds. Right. I just so much that I just would rather just be to myself and just either write or do that. But when I had written this book, and that's another common thing that I've heard from you too, is that just being a benefit to someone else. Like I truly believe that's one of the reasons that we're here on earth, is to be a benefit to other people. Yeah. And as someone who didn't grow up in the church and someone who came to embrace the gospel later in life, I've got a lot of family who does not share the same worldview and just kind of looks at me like, what are you doing? And just having just a burden and desire to communicate the gospel with them. And so oftentimes when people are trying to communicate the gospel, it's like this weird, awkward thing and trying to do it. And I don't feel that it should be that way. It should be just as natural. Often we kind of like compare. I've heard somebody say, God is in the church. He's also in the White House too. Yeah. And it's like we kind of confine the sovereign God to this one space. And it's like, no, the earth is the Lord and the fullness thereof.
Right.
Like, if I'm talking about God, I can talk about God, and whatever subject is brought up, I can be able to relate it back to God, and it shouldn't be this weird thing. And so that's how I kind of came up with the book Burden of Proof, and just using just known concepts in every day just to try to communicate them to people, especially my loved ones. Like I said, my father's always on my mind when I'm thinking about it. Didn't grow up, didn't know him, but just wanting to communicate the gospel in a language that he understands. And so just ended up writing, and then after a while I'm like, yo, I got like 300 pages. What am I going to do with this? And so just looking into ways to like self-publish and do things like that. And it's like, man, I've written a book, and it wasn't even me trying to write a book. It's just, hey, how can I take this simple concept and relate it back to the gospel? And so I did that, and then I'm like, oh, how can I make people aware of what I'm doing? And right around that time, listening to podcasts, and it's like, we really don't have any excuse anymore. You know, I got these mics, got the software, got the camera. So it is an investment that you have to put in, but it's like, you do all that work. And speaking to your point, where it's like, I put in a lot of hours to do this. And it's like, you put something out, and it's like, and because we're in this the good and the bad of social media, where you have direct access, it also means it's oversaturation too.
Right.
So it's like, how do you stand out among someone else? And it's like, and I'll get to this too, it's like, it's easy, and it goes back to the point of who are you, where to, compromise on your integrity just to have a viral moment, just so someone can know about you. And it's just like, I don't want to build what I'm doing based off some viral moment, because that's not sustainable. So it's like, I've got to, do the slow burn. And it's like, some people catch it, some people don't. And it's like, hey, you may have 1 view, you may have 0 views, and nobody may care about what you're doing. And God's been like just pressing on me, are you going to be faithful? And that's the hardest thing. It's like, nobody's paying attention. Are you going to be faithful for what I have given you? Yeah. Because God has provided. Like I said, I would not be doing this podcast if it wasn't for you guys. So it's like, God put you guys in my path, and creating content, you guys stepping out and just being encouragements and supports to me. So it's like, I gotta keep going. I've got to keep going. And it's like, God has been providing. So it's like, and that's the tricky thing too, is because I want to do this full time. I want to support my family, and that's the big thing as just a husband and a father. Just, I want to be able to support my family. And a lot of times, it's a hard thing to do, because you got to work a full-time job, do this, and it's like, have time for your family. Because that's the other thing too. It's like, I've noticed something, that you want to work so hard for your family that you fail to spend time with your family. And it's like, as a man, I see how easy it is to fall into that trap of just working so hard for them, and just taking time just to play with Autumn, have a conversation with my wife, because I'm just working to provide. And it's like, they not spending time with me. So that's one of the things. But defining success for me, as what you guys have said, is just being faithful to what God has called me to. And it's like, how do you know it's God? Because it's uncomfortable. It's not something I want to do. I like to say this, even though I know it's probably not theologically correct. Like, God don't care about my feelings. He really doesn't. Because like I said, I would much rather be behind the cameras. But it's like, no, this is what I'm calling you to do. But Tam, you, even though you're not monetizing as of right now, you're in a unique position, because when I met you guys, Pat was working somewhere else, and then events happened, and so he became a content creator, and that, I'm sure, just drastically changed your life. And so you being a spouse and an extension of that, it's like, it has a drastic effect on you. So how has that been, being the spouse of someone who does create content full time? How has that been?
It's been humbling. That's the simple word that I would give it, because we had to make some sacrifices to allow for that to happen. It was 2016. My husband had been laid off for the 4th time since at that time it was 6 years in marriage, going on 7. And it was rough. It was rough seeing him in the place of knowing he needed to go to work, go to a 9 to 5, but not wanting to do that. And I remember, and I hope he doesn't care that I'm saying this, but I remember one morning I'm getting ready for work. He's still in the bed, and I'm like, bruh, you cannot call out again. You got to go to work. And it was a struggle because he knew, and I knew it too, honestly, that he wasn't called to a 9 to 5. So it was like, okay, Lord, what do we do from here? Like, this is the 4th time that he's been laid off. And God is kind of like, okay, y'all gonna get it. I mean, this is, I've been trying to you set y'all up, but it's kind of like I won't say we were putting ourselves, taking steps back. Every time he would try to get a job, we were trying to figure it out. But so yeah, it's been humbling for me to see where he is now. Like, if I talk about it too much, I'll probably cry, just because God has just graced him so much in the space that he's in. For people who don't know, my husband, he's I call him a musician. He doesn't play, but he's a sound designer. He's a rapper. He's a hip hop composer. He's a music composer, a producer, and so much more to so many. He's a writer. So much more to a lot of people. And he has been full time since 2016. And it's been a journey, but I've enjoyed seeing him flourish. And I mean, this past month has been amazing with just some of the great things that has come his way. And I'm excited for him. I'm excited to see where God is going to take him. And what was your question?
Your experience.
Okay. I'm just making sure I'm answering.
You're doing good.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, it's been a journey, but I told him, cause, and he probably is like, he's telling too much of my business, but he wanted to quit at one point, and I told him that he couldn't quit. And I didn't necessarily know why I was saying that, but I knew it was the Lord telling me to tell him that. And since that day, the endurance that I've just seen in him to just make it work and allow God to just make things happen has been phenomenal. Yeah. So I'm very, very proud of him. I'm very proud to be his wife. I try to tell him that as often as I can. And trust me, I can do a lot better with, support and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, the mix is, Pat it's good. It's good.
And I think I told you this before, and it even goes back to just perception that we was addressing earlier. Just even though I haven't been directly in your lives, just watching from afar, I've always just seen you as just a huge support and encouragement, because I can understand how the toll that takes, and I don't want to like generalize women, but I know that's one of the things that they love is stability. Mm-hmm. And when that's taken from them, I can imagine that most women wouldn't respond the way you have. And I've just seen nothing but grace in that whole situation, even though I'm sure there's times where you just, don't feel that way. But it's just been an encouragement for me, because my situation is kind of the reverse, where my wife wants to create content. She's a photographer. She wants to do that full time. And in my mind, I'm like, it's not something that's stable. Mm-hmm. We need a stable income, but it's the same thing. Like, she does not want to be at this job. Right. She doesn't want to. She can't stand it. And again, talking about telling people business, like, she's potentially up for a promotion, and like, she was almost, I had to like convince her, bro, take the promotion. It's more money. But she's like, I just don't want to do it. Right. And just that same kind of deal where it's like, I know she was not made for that. And just trying to be as much as a support and encouragement, but realizing we still got bills to pay. Yeah. Wanting to support your spouse's dreams and passions, but also having to deal with the reality of the situation and realizing that there's going to be sacrifices that are going to be made, that you're going to learn so much about your spouse, but also about yourself too, that do I truly know what it means to love somebody unconditional, to truly show grace in these difficult times. So I definitely appreciate you sharing that. I did mean to ask you this earlier, Benita, and I forgot. So I had saw on social media that you had posted that I believe it was called an ambassador for Black girls in media, and I didn't know how much you could talk a little bit about that.
So Black Girls in Media is really just an organization that is trying to get the buy-in from Black women across all media outlets. So radio, news, podcasts, blogs, social media, really putting us at the forefront of telling our own stories. There's a quote that whoever controls the media controls the masses. And I think that for a long time, we have been at the mercy of other people telling our stories. And it's just something like a message and a value that this organization has that I really, really connected with. So I was excited when they reached out to me. But we just kind of go behind the scenes of a lot of different influencers, a lot of different newscasters, things like that, showing what they're doing, showing the Black woman's impact in the media space. And I'm really just getting started with it, so I don't have a lot to share. But I'm really excited about it just for what it stands for and what I believe it can accomplish.
And that's something about me, too, that I try to be very intentional with the people that I have on. I didn't want to create a podcast. A lot of podcasts that I listen to is just very male dominant, and wanting to create spaces for not just males but women as well. And people of different ethnicities, but specifically women of color,
right?
And that's very important to me, because as I've grown and just learned just things about the world, that just the Black woman is very marginalized in society. And that wasn't the case for me, because I was grew up with just surrounded by just very strong Black women, and a lot of my friends are Black women, so it's always hard for me just to understand like how Black women can be devalued, because they're so important in my own life. So I try to be extremely intentional about, if I do have a platform, making sure that you guys' voices are heard, and that it's very important, because you guys have played such an instrumental role in my life. And now that I'm the father of a little Black girl too, how important that is, just for her to see that representation. So I'm excited to hear about what you guys are doing, and they've got a very good ambassador when it comes to that. But I wanted to end with this. So we're creatives. We do share the same worldview. And I just wanted to know your thoughts on what are some things as far as, Christian content creators and just Christians in media that you see that you like, and things that we can potentially improve upon, because that's really big for me. I feel like a lot of times Christians are like put in this box, that we have to be a certain way, and it even challenges me and myself, and how I view certain things in the world. But so many times we're just kind of like these weak-minded individuals who just use Christianity as a crutch, or that we just blindly follow and like don't really think this through. It's like, how are you following the book that was given to the slaves? And it's like, we think a little bit deeper than that. But, and again, acknowledging that we've played a role in how we've been presented as well, especially in the media. But just as someone who is a Christian and wanting to display certain type of content, what are some of the things that you guys see that we need to, that you like, and something that we could improve upon?
Tam?
Trying to start with the positive here. So I think that
that's why I passed it off to you.
Yeah.
But let's sit there. That it's hard to even think of some positives. And why do you think that is?
I think we struggle sometimes as Christians to put on the face, honestly, of just perfection. And that's one thing that I'm still working on that, but I'm learning that there is a major blessing in vulnerability and transparency, because, God called us to commune together, be a part of each other's lives. How can we do that if we are not honest, authentic, open, transparent, whatever word you want to use, to show that we're human? Yeah, we're Christians. We believe in Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ was perfect, but he didn't create any of us to be perfect. So I think if we could get over that even more, because I feel like it's trying to roll through. You know what I mean? Then we can reach the masses. We can reach more people, and more people will be open to us being a part of, or I'm trying to be PC at the same time. Just being willing for people to allow us into their spaces more.
See, and you're a person.
Thank you.
You're real.
Yes. Yes.
You deal with stuff.
That's it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it's not just a face of, I'm a Christian. I'm a happy little Christian. God is good all the time. Yeah, he is. But sometimes I'll be like, okay, Lord. Mm-hmm. So I just think if we could get over that, then we would see a little bit more of what's the word I'm looking for? Acceptance to our content and what we're trying to present to people. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now that you've had some time to think.
It's my turn. So I think definitely definitely the in a box. And then I've got to go to the financial side. Pastor Gay always says that if hustling was a spiritual gift, I'd have it. Because I think that from a Christian business perspective, I think that people think, and sometimes I think our creatives think, that because we're doing it for God, that it should be free.
Yes. Lord.
Because we want to help somebody, or right. whatever we should do should be free. Like, we don't have to take time to create it. We don't have to spend money to create it. Right. So I think that's something that we have to get around. Not that I want to make it about money, because it's not. And I'm not a person that's all about money, but you have to understand that, the same way you can value someone who doesn't do specifically Christian content, and you pay them, you honor them with your money, but then you expect me to come through and do it for free. It's like, nah, we gotta figure out. But I think that kind of permeates through a lot of issues, or a lot of things that we think about as Christians in money. Like, even when we have like pastors that drive like nice cars, and then we call into question why they deserve a nice car, things like that. So that's one of the things I would like for us to do better at, to understand that it still is a gift, it still is a product, it still is a service that they're providing, and we should honor, if we like what they do enough to ask them to come do it for us, right, we should be able to respect it enough to pay them for it.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really good point, because like I said, being married to someone who does photography, that's always a struggle. It's like, I don't want to charge too much.
Yeah.
Right.
Or even like people who she knows is like willing to come down on price, and it's like it's that fine line that you have to tread, because in my mind, I'm like, we gotta put food on the table.
And when she's out there taking pictures, it's 2-3 hours taking the pictures, then she gotta come back, she gotta edit them. So I try to be very conscientious when I ask, especially my friends that are in business. If I ask you to do something for me, I don't want the homie friend, the homie rate.
Right.
Like, tell me what you charge.
Right.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, if I call somebody else to do it, they're gonna tell me what they charge.
Right.
And if you lay it on your heart, like if I have Tam do pictures and she lays it on her heart to do it for me for free,
right,
that's different.
Yeah. But you don't go in with that expectation,
right?
Yeah.
Of, oh, hey, can I just? I mean, I've had this happen, and it's just it can be frustrating, because it's like, okay, what do you see me as? Like,
right?
Am I just a freebie. Because it's like, oh, can I just get a couple shots after church? We can just go to the side of the building. And I'm like, no.
Yeah.
You know, I have a calendar. You know, I might have something else to do. And it's just, it can be frustrating. Yeah. It really can be.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, I definitely agree with that. And my biggest thing is just engaging culture, because a lot of the content that I do consume is not Christian based, you know, and I just see how many misconceptions that are out there about Christians, especially, like I said, when it came about the abortion issue or just any other issue that's like just a hot controversial issue. It's like Christians are usually just kind of pigeonholed, and there's not this nuance. Everything is just kind of black or white. And that's, I have just huge burden and desire just to engage, because even like the word Christian, it just has such a huge connotation.
Yep.
That, you know, Christian is usually like white, Republican, conservative, Southern. You know, we rarely think. And then you've got the other end where it's just like just super duper liberal and just so out there, where there's not this balance that we have. And again, just wanting to be able to create, and not everything has to be so overtly Christian. So, because that was one of the other questions that I had, was like, who are some Christian creators? And there's this podcast called the Roommates Podcast. I believe it's this brother named Chris and Hafiz, and they're not overt with their Christianity or anything like that, but they have, you know, guests come in from all walks of life. I don't know if you guys ever heard of Taylor Rooks, but they've had like her, Ben Shapiro, Sho Baraka on. So just a very wide range of people just talking about life, but they're Christians, you know, but it's not all in your face. And I think a lot of times we have to have room for that, because I know especially like in Christian hip hop, that was like a really, really big thing. It's like all your music has to, you know, have to be centered around some sort of theology, or you just can't make music just about your life experiences because you didn't say Jesus enough times.
Right.
And it's like, why are you putting these rules on me that Scripture doesn't even put on me, that I'm still a human being, that I can still acknowledge, you know, the trials of life, that I have doubts in my faith, that I get angry at God, that I see other people and I get jealous of them, and just have just real human emotions. And just because one of the beautiful things I love is the Psalms. You read the Psalms and it's just so vulnerable. And it's just like, because there's even like Psalms called like the imprecatory Psalms, where it's like praying harm on your enemies. Like, how often do we hear that happen? Where it's like, oh snap, this is in the Bible. But it's like, it's a real emotion that we rarely see, because we've got to have
that we all feel at some point in our lives.
Exactly. And it's like we people don't get to see Jesus in our Christianity. You know, we try to just make them think that we're have it all together and everything like that. So that's always my big thing, is just engaging culture a lot better. But like I said, just wanting to have that balance, because I can see where, you know, people think you'll get stained by the world. So there is that level of maturity that you do need to have, because it is enticing over there, but people need to see that, you know, and just, you know, making sure you're truly grounded and rooted in your faith. But like I said, this topic is very dear to me, because I'm in school right now, about to finish up a degree, want to get another degree, and it's like, I've literally been in school my whole life, and it's like, I wonder, is there ever going to be some sort of payoff? You know, and the thing with me, I haven't seen it done before. The only thing that I've seen is someone who wants to be a pastor, you know, but that's not what I want to do. I do want to teach, but like I said, teaching in the seminaries, and I'm sure we've all been experiencing these spaces where we're the only ones there, you know, the only minority, and it's just like, in seminary, it's just like every class that I have, I'll go because they have like an attendance sheet, and I see if there's any other black people in the class, just see what it is. And it's like, that space is just even smaller. So even though I have a desire to teach, and I don't mind teaching people who are not in my cultural context, I do feel the need and the burden to always give back to my own. And that's why I think the local church is so beautiful, because you have that place to do it. Because so often when I was thinking of getting my degree, that I'm doing work outside the church. No, I get my degree to help be a benefit to the church. And just viewing things like that. So like I said, this topic was very, very important to me, and I'm grateful for you guys, just supportive of the content that you create. Like I said, you guys are exceptional writers, not just who you are, that the content that you create is quality content as well. So I'm very, very appreciative of you guys, but I didn't know if you anyone had any final words, any questions, or anything y'all wanted to add before we get up out of here? Oh, y'all did. Yes, y'all did, because y'all wanted to bring up something. Go ahead.
Okay, so she handed that off to me. Wasn't prepared for that.
The extrovert gives it to the introvert.
Benita and I, along with our friend Catrice, we are. Help me. It's a we're not a collective, because that's the word that comes to my mind, but that's not correct.
We're creating a space for creators, Christian creators. And it's funny that, you know, you had the last piece of what you were saying just about like everything doesn't have to be so overtly Christian.
Right.
Because we had that exact conversation. We were talking about our organization, and we're creating it for creators that are believers, that have been called to do something with their gifts in the world, but they are believers, they are Christians, and specifically for women. Yeah. But we were talking about how, you know, when we think of these things, I don't know that we want to be like, this is a Christian event, because of the connotation that comes with it. Right. Like, when you meet Tam and I, you're going to know that we love Jesus, because we're going to talk about that we love Jesus. Yeah. But I don't know that we want to lead with, you know, this Christian umbrella, just because I think that it boxes us up, it backs you into a corner. Mm-hmm. And, you know, there are these just two views of what Christianity is. It's the, you know, buttoned up, you know, what you described earlier, or the super liberal, and we fall in the middle of that. Yes. But even though we fall in the middle of that, it feels like there's not really a space there. It's just like, how do you fit into the Christian perspective if you're not on one of the ends? Right. So we wanted to create that for women that believe that God has called them to create, and how do you do it? So from a spiritual aspect, we want to be there to love on each other, to build each other up. From a business perspective, how do you do it? Yeah. Like, how do you carry it out? How do you turn your idea in your head into something that is real, something that can be generate revenue? And we are looking to do our first retreat next year. Yeah,
2020. Yep. And it's called Call to Create. That's the name of our organization. And like Benita said, it is going to be a space for creatives who are women, specifically women. I mean, we'll have our fellas come in, you know, sometimes, but don't y'all try to come in and take over. But yeah, Call to Create. We are going to do our retreat next year, but we will be starting up our sister sessions, is what we're calling them. Next month, actually, September. Yes. We're looking forward to that. Hopefully it'll be September. It's gonna be September.
Next month.
September.
Dang, that is next month.
Yeah,
it is.
Where's this year going?
It's crazy. So yeah, and in that space with our sister sessions, it's really just gonna be an authentic space to where we could just talk. Yeah. You know, not necessarily have something formal every single time, but just create a venue or an avenue for conversation. For women who are creative, and when we say creative, if you have a blog, if you're an author, if you are an entrepreneur, yes, we want you to come. But even if you're not, maybe God has just created you to create a space in your house as a housewife, or a stay-at-home mom, or whatever. We want you to come too. I mean, because we're gonna have something for everybody. Yep. We're not going to exclude anybody, married, single, 20, 30, 40, whatever. It doesn't matter. Come. Yeah. And we'll be promoting that soon. So we got a lot of stuff in the works.
Yeah, really excited about it.
Yeah, definitely dope to see, just to hear that. And like I said, just taking an idea that you had in your head and just bringing it to fruition. Like, I think that's difficult, just starting. You know, is one of the most difficult things. So yeah, I'm happy for you guys and glad you guys can share it here. And looking forward to seeing what God does through that. But like I said, it's always just a blessing just to have these conversations, because like I said, don't know where it's going to go. And just grateful for just you guys' transparency and honesty and just the experience and wisdom that you can share. So I'm grateful for you guys. And for those who are listening, hopefully you're able just to glean something from that, because like I said, we don't have it all together, and that's one of the biggest things that I've learned is that I can't do everything, that I need support, and just how important it is to encourage other people, especially like I said, just social media is so dominant where it's just nothing but negativity. That just brief moments of just someone appreciating or just providing some sort of encouragement just gets you through the day. Because like I said, just I can do this right now and it'll be on a high, but next week it's like it's rough. Because like I said, my mind is already thinking who I'm gonna have for the next one, and not just enjoying this moment right here. And
so true. It is. It's real.
And so I'm very grateful for the encouragement that you guys have been to me and my family. So thank you so much. And until next time, peace.
Yo, my world don't stop when the beats commence. Said I'm climbing up this ladder just to get over this fence and run far, far away from the games people play. In this melancholy modern day music, Malay, touche. Pussy cats with lives to spare that kick in your heart, nice as hell. Yeah, be aware, beware. I hate to see you less a liver or worse. Polar bear with the time catch the river. Now that's cold, and like that, now that's old. Didn't buy the last copy of this, now that's old. It's the pepper on your salt, my dudes.